Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat?
As we get closer to the draft, 2 weeks from tomorrow, my goodness, I'm so fired up about this. I love the draft. I'm a draft nerd, self-admitted draft nerd. The fact that Mike Detillier no longer does the M&D draft report, like there's a piece of my soul missing, candidly. I mean, I'm the draft nerd that would sit there with my M&D draft report, marker, and a pen, and I would like follow along as the draft went along, and I love the draft. So 2 weeks from Thursday, the draft gets underway, and the Saints are continuing to host their top 30 visits. I've explained before, but every team is allowed, almost like official visits in recruiting, they're allowed to bring in 30 prospects to their facility. You work them out, you can take them out, you can interview them, all that sort of stuff. If there's players maybe you feel like you didn't get a look at the Combine or Senior Bowl or at their pro day, it's a way to kick the tires even closer on some of these prospects. And the Saints are bringing in a running back. And it's someone that's familiar to people around here, and that's MarShawn Lloyd. You might remember MarShawn Lloyd started his career at South Carolina, played 2 seasons for the Gamecocks, and then this past year transferred and went to USC. He played at both USCs. He played USC East and USC West. So for Carolina, and then this past year for Southern Cal. And the thing about MarShawn Lloyd is he has been a really productive back in his college career. So he played three collegiate seasons. His first year at South Carolina, he averaged 3.5 yards a carry, 3.6 to be exact. His second year, in 2022, he averaged 5.2 yards per carry. And then this year at SC, averaged 7.1 yards per carry. So in 3 years, MarShawn Lloyd went from 3.6 to 5.2 to 7.1 yards per carry. Y'all, that was on 116 rushing attempts. It wasn't like he averaged 7 yards a carry on 13 attempts. You know, he just broke a couple long ones late in games. Dude had 116 rushing attempts and ran for 820 yards. Yes, MarShawn Lloyd is a really talented runner, and he's also pretty good in the receiving game. He had 232 receiving yards this past year at Southern Cal in Lincoln Riley's offense, where, yes, they're going to float their backs out and throw them the football. So I, as a prospect, all on board. 5'9", 220. You know who he reminds me of? Mark Ingram. Now, I understand the Saints are not reinventing the Sean Payton offense again. You've brought in Clint Kubiak, and you want the offense to look far more like San Francisco's offense. Now, you don't have Christian McCaffrey. Maybe you do an Alvin Kamara in a sense, but I think the better thought is actually Kendre Miller could be that style of player. I'm not saying Kendre Miller is becoming all-pro, but I'm telling you, Kendre Miller, as far as his game, his style, more closely mirrors Kamara and McCaffrey. But you always need depth at running back, and I think MarShawn Lloyd is a really good player. So check on MarShawn Lloyd, the player. Now the question is, where might he go in the draft? Is he going to be available to you in this draft? I kind of searched a bunch of mock drafts to see, okay, where are they projecting MarShawn Lloyd? Now, just because where mock drafts project him, that doesn't mean it's where he's going to go. But just to give you an idea, okay, I didn't find a single mock draft that had him in round 1. And, I mean, I don't think you probably won't see a running back taken in round 1. But Mel Kiper today put out a 2-round mock draft. He was not in that. MarShawn Lloyd was not in the top 2 rounds. Field Yates last week had a 2-round mock draft. MarShawn Lloyd was not in the 2-round mock. As a matter of fact, Matt Miller from ESPN a couple of weeks ago did a 7-round mock draft, and he had MarShawn Lloyd in round 4. The 7th pick of round 4, number 107 overall to the Giants. So remember the Saints draft capital this year. You have the 14th pick and the 45th pick. And my hope, like I'm sure many of you that love this team, are hoping the Saints go tackle at 14, wide receiver at 45. The 2 deepest positions in this draft, and at both those spots, you're very likely going to get great players. Some great tackle will be available at 14. Some great receiver will be available at 45. I hope they check those 2 boxes. And then the rest of the draft is kind of like, okay, let's see where it goes. You don't have a 3rd-round pick. You don't have a 4th-round pick. You have 4 5th-round picks and 2 6th-round picks. So you have a lot of draft capital that you could package together conceivably to move up and take a player that you like if it's a position of need. The real question is, where does running back fall on position of need? And when you're a team that's missed the playoffs 3 years in a row, and this year is projected you're over-under at 7.5, you got a lot of needs. Yes, you could absolutely use help on the interior defensive line. While you have bodies, you don't necessarily have a lot of production at defensive end outside of Carl Granderson. Yes, Cam Jordan, but he's coming off his least productive year since his rookie season. I feel like you got 3 really good linebackers now with Davis, Pete Werner, and Willie Gay. And you have your starting cornerbacks as well. The spot defensively where you really have a need is safety. Because you have Tyrann Mathieu, who's aging. Marcus May is gone. I don't know how much do they really feel committed to Jonathan Abram and Jordan Howden. If they feel great about it, great. But if not, you need a starter at safety. You certainly need depth there. So I'd put safety there. But all of the needs are on the offensive side. You need offensive linemen. You need receiving help. Yes, you'd love a productive wide receiver. You might have, you have resources invested in Foster Moreau and Juwan Johnson, but they didn't produce for you last year. You've been searching for a pass-catching tight end since Jimmy Graham left the first time. So much so that you brought Jimmy Graham back out of retirement last year. So, yeah, running back is a need. Look at what you have. Alvin Kamara, you could off-ramp, like the way they structure Kamara's deal is you could off-ramp from Kamara after 2024. So this could very well be, he's under contract beyond this, but you could off-ramp off of him in 2025 because he's got like a $23 million cap number you'd save essentially with Kamara. If you did off-ramp from Kamara this year, you'd save something like $13 million against the cap. Hang on, I'm looking at it right here. In 2025, so Kamara's cap hit in 2025 is $29 million. His dead number is $10 million. So you actually save like $19 million if he's not on the roster in 2025. So this more than likely, barring a restructure or something, would be Kamara's last year. Jamal Williams. You signed Jamal Williams to a 3-year, $12 million deal. But really, after this year, you could off-ramp off of Williams' deal, and you got like $1 million in dead cap money. So very practically, this could be the last year in New Orleans for Alvin Kamara and Jamal Williams, which means you have Kendre Miller on a rookie deal, and you could bring in another running back on a rookie deal this year. So in 2025, your 2 running backs would be Kendre Miller in his 3rd year and whoever you draft this year in year 2. So I like getting younger at that spot. I certainly like having options, considering over the last, really Kamara in his entire career, as great of a player as he's been, he's the Saints' all-time touchdown leader now as well. He just hasn't been able to stay healthy, and especially since Mark Ingram hasn't been here, you're that tandem where Ingram took a lot of those between the tackles reps. Kamara's just taken more of a beating in this running game. So, yeah, I'm good taking a running back in round 4 if MarShawn Lloyd is there and you can get it for, and you can trade up into round 4 for a manageable price. It's one of the things when you get deeper into the draft, we say so hyper-focused sometimes on what it takes to move up like in the top 10. Sometimes you'd be talking about, okay, well, like, what if you traded next year's 4 and one of your 6s this year, and then you net MarShawn Lloyd? Well, that means you don't have a 4 next year, unless you trade up again, which the Saints will always do. But that's the Saints' approach. They treat draft picks like credit cards. Just use it in the future. I mean, as long as there's a team willing to move back and you recoup capital, you find a trade partner, yeah, you can make that happen. So if you're on the phone calling every team as you're going through the draft, that guy stays on the board, generally you can find a way to make a deal, and that's been the Saints' approach. So, listen, my feeling with New Orleans and the approach to the draft has generally been, I don't mind them trading up. I would rather you be convicted on a player, like really be bought in, trust your scouting, your evaluation, say, we want that guy. He's our guy. And so you're aggressive and you go get him instead of running the risk of somebody else take him and left with what's left. So I'm good with that. And generally have been as the Saints have been in win now mode. I've softened a bit now because I think you're in a situation like in 2017 where you had back-to-back-to-back 7 and 9 seasons where you needed more players. Like when the Saints were in 2018, you're the 1 seed in the NFC. You can't draft 7 players because 7 draft picks aren't making your roster. So I'd rather you package picks, move up, and take 4 or 5 guys you're really convicted on. I'm softened a little on that now because you do need to remake your roster with young, inexpensive talent on rookie deals. But it's also a thing where I don't know that 8 draft picks are making the team this year. Could 5 or 6 make it? Absolutely. So you take your top 2 guys, and if you're convicted on a guy in round 3 or 4, you want to move up and get it, I'm going to be okay with them doing that, generally speaking. And maybe it'll be MarShawn Lloyd.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.